Witnessing our children go through pain and turmoil is a very tough thing as a parent. And as we go through separation and divorce, it's unrealistic to think that our children are going to go unscathed. But it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, far from it. Today, I've got Christina McGhee, a divorce and parenting expert, who joins us today from Houston in Texas. And she's going to talk us through three important areas relating to the well-being of our children, in which we might tackle things a little bit differently for the better as we transition into single parent life. So hi Christina, lovely to have you back with us again today.
Hi Harriet, how are you?
Great, thank you very much. Today we're going to talk about how best to manage children when families have just separated or when you're going through divorce. It seems to be that, parents when they divorce are clearly very anxious about their children and how best to manage them, and normally we think that they're going to be damaged by it in one way or another, but is that a reality?
Well, I think a lot of parents struggle with that issue. You know, as a parent, one of the toughest jobs we have in being a parent is sitting back and watching our kids hurt. I mean, it absolutely guts us. We don't want that for our kids. The truth is that there's no way to take away all the pain of divorce. Your kids aren't going to get through it unscathed. But that also doesn't mean that they are doomed for a life of devastation and dysfunction. A lot of how children are able to handle divorce depends on how we're handling it. How are we processing with our kids? Are we talking about it? How are they seeing us handle it? And are we focused on our kids and paying attention to what's going on for them?
Okay. In your experience, Christina, are there some sort of key issues that where parents sort of aren't getting it quite right, or they perhaps aren't considering various things that would actually help better manage their children through the process of separation and divorce?
I think one of the keys is that, when we go back to how are you talking to your kids about this, a lot of times parents feel like silence is golden. So if their kids aren't talking about it, they make the assumption that everything is okay. And this happens with very young children and older children. That's not necessarily true. There are a lot of times where kids are often very sensitive to how we're handling things as parents, and they don't want to rock the boat or upset a parent, make someone unhappy or make things worse. So a lot of times kids won't talk about what's going on with them, and it's important for us to pick up the ball and kind of open the door and have conversations and do periodic check-ins to see how they're doing.
Okay, and if they don't volunteer any information, should we then think, well, they're okay, or do we just leave it and then come back to it another time, and then maybe they might open up more then?
Well, I think there's a number of things you can do. One, trust your gut, because as a parent, you usually know when things aren't right. If you're seeing big behavior changes in your kids, like they're typically very outgoing and now they're not interested in doing anything and they're really keeping to themselves, or they're usually very animated and chatty and now they've gone pretty quiet, you pay attention to those things. And if you have a kid, especially a teenager, because they definitely don't want to talk about divorce,
No.
It's always good to use the backdoor approach, and that is you can say, I know this might be really tough for you to talk about, and it may be something you don't want to talk about, but when you're ready to talk, I want you to know I'll be ready to listen, so you just let me know, and that way you put the ball in their court.
Oh, that's a lovely approach, isn't it? Just so that they know, then when they're ready, they might open up. Okay, so that's very important. Keeping your eye on the ball, just to make sure if they've got anything to say, they can say it. So are there any other sort of main issues that perhaps parents don't think about when it comes to helping their children come out unscathed or as good as they can be, really?
I think it's very important to remember the impact that conflict has on your kids. Almost all kids at one time or another feel like divorce is their fault. And this happens, again, with very young children, and it happens with older children, even young adults. And a lot of parents don't realize that. So with younger children, what happens is when there's a lot of conflict and fighting, or there's tension between mom and dad, kids pick up on that. And in kid thinking, they rationalize that if all the fighting and all the rows are about me,
right,
which they usually are,
yes,
schedules and money and
yes,
how time is being spent, kids think it must be my fault.
Right.
This is all my fault. And so they feel a deep sense of responsibility. And it's important for us as parents to be sensitive to that.
Okay.
With older children, when we're talking about young adults, it's a little bit different in that if parents stayed in it for the kids,
Right.
and the kids realize that, then they may feel a deep sense of responsibility for parents staying in an unhappy marriage because of them.
Okay.
And so that responsibility shifts a little bit.
That's really interesting, because I think a lot of people often do stay together for the children, but they don't consider the fact that the young adults will actually take responsibility and feel bad about that when they eventually discover that that could have been the case.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's very important. Okay, so are there any other main issues as well to add on to those that you sort of come across a lot when you talk to your clients?
The idea of two homes is extremely important. A lot of times in a divorce situation, it turns into you have a real home and you have a place you visit. And I think it's extremely important for kids to feel connected to a home with mom and a home with dad, regardless of how time is spent. Kids need to know that they still will continue to share a life with each parent. And I encourage parents to talk about homes and to not use the word visit, but talk about time with the parent, time with mom, time with dad.
Okay. I mean, even I guess sometimes with a lot of parents, there's the main home, a place where the children spend most of their time, and then the other home might be somewhere they spend less time. But so what you're saying is it's still important. They need their own rooms there, and they need to consider them both as primary homes. Would you go as far as saying that?
Well, I would say they just both need to feel like home,
Okay.
period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it may be that they spend more time at one than the other because that's just the nature of the way things are.
Okay.
And a lot of times parents get very hung up on how time is spent, like it needing to be 50-50 to make it exactly equal. And I really encourage parents to develop a schedule that is focused more on their kids' needs
Okay.
than what's fair.
Right.
So
Okay.
think about it. I've been married for over 20 years, and my husband and I don't spend exactly 50-50 time with our kids. Sometimes it's 30-70, sometimes it's 40-60, sometimes it goes, either direction, just depending on what our kids' needs are.
Sure.
And just because the marriage has ended, that doesn't mean your children's needs are the same. The kids' needs haven't changed. They still need mom. They still need dad. Life still needs to go on. So I think it's really important that kids feel connected to both places.
Yeah. I mean, I guess today the advantage is that even if they're not physically in the home of the other parent, social media and Skype and all those things can draw you close and mean that you can have regular contact. So that's a plus of technology, I guess, apart from the negatives of all the gaming that our children tend to do.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword.
Yes, it really is. Well, that's brilliant. Thanks so much for those insiders today. I mean, it's been really useful, and I'm hopefully our audience has learned quite a bit. But I'm sure there are lots of other issues we could cover. So where can people find out more about what you're talking about and you?
Well, if people are looking for more information, they can check me out online at divorceandchildren.com. That's where my blog lives, and I've got lots of articles and tips. So love for someone to stop by. Amazing. And if you're interested in coaching, you're looking for a little more support or someone who can kind of help you get some insight, maybe you're feeling a little stuck, you can visit parenting-apart.com. And that's my coaching site, and gives you lots of information about what kind of support I might be able to offer.
That's super. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a delight having you again.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much.
Until next time. Goodbye. So that was Christina McGhee joining us today from Houston in Texas. And Christine is also author of the book Parenting Apart, How Separated and Divorced Parents Can Raise Happy and Secure Kids, which I highly recommend reading, and you can get hold of that from Amazon. In the meantime, if you've got any more questions about this topic, or indeed any other wellbeing questions, then please email me, Harriet, HARRIETT, at wellbeingexaminer.com. And in the meantime, please stay happy, healthy, single mums.